You wake inside the exact moment the world decided to wait for your collapse. You open your eyes and the room was already there, compressed, shrinking like a lung that tightens on purpose. The air is heavy, sticking to your tongue, and every stare pierces you like a heated pin. This is not an audience, it is a beast with 1,000 eyes. They do not judge you with words. They devour you with their anticipation. You feel your pulse in your throat, a drum announcing betrayal. Your body remembers older nights, alarm, running, survival. But now that ancient signal, once useful, has become a trap. The reflex to tremble, to talk too much, to smile awkwardly, yawns into a cliff. One hesitation, and the crowd vomits its verdict. Who invented this silent test? The answer is cruel: biology. You carry in your nerves maps drawn by predators that no longer exist, by firelight and the brush of skin beneath lawless skies. It is a useful inheritance disguised as a curse. Your fear isn't a moral failure. It is a mechanism designed to scream before it thinks. And yet, there they are, the few who never seem to shake, wearing calmness like armor fused to their skin. How do they manage it? They are not born heroic. They do not possess extra cold blood. Their stillness comes from a choice, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to obey it. Calmness, in truth, is constructed, a deliberate architecture built in defiance of the body that wants to run. Think of it as an intimate rebellion. While others burn alive inside their own reflexes, the unreactive person simply states, "Not today." That engineered quiet doesn't dominate with noise. It settles like a root that holds steady when everything around it begins to fall away. It is a form of power that begins by whispering to your own pulse to stay still. But this calm does not appear from nowhere. It has a structure, an anatomy you must learn to dismantle and rebuild. And it is there, beneath the skin, where the next truth waits. The architecture of fear, the machinery you must understand to construct a dangerous stillness. You go inward now, beneath the trembling surface of skin, into the corridors where your oldest ghosts still live. Down here, fear is not an emotion, it is architecture. It was carved in you long before language, when humanity survived by flinching faster than death could reach. Your mind becomes a labyrinth of twitching nerves and flickering shadows, each hallway built to overreact, each corner wired to scream. This is the machinery you inherited, raw, frantic, ancient, and you feel it, the jitter beneath your ribs, the spark behind your teeth, the whisper in your spine urging you to run, hide, collapse. Fear is not personal. It is mechanical. It wants reaction, any reaction, because reaction once meant survival. But here is the forbidden truth. The unreactive mind does not silence fear. It turns its mechanisms against themselves. It rewires its own alarms. It steps between the gears and forces them to move at a different rhythm. Awareness becomes a wrench. Breath becomes a lever. Dissociation becomes a switch that dims the frantic lights. Calmness is not natural. It is engineered. It is a fortress. You build inside the chaos, brick by brick, heartbeat by heartbeat. It is the deliberate act of holding still while your blood begs you to fall apart. And that choice, that rebellion against your own biology, is where dangerous calm is born. Because choosing stillness is horrific in its own way. It feels like standing in front of an oncoming storm and refusing to blink. It feels like letting your nerves burn without letting them guide your hands. You are not killing fear. You are bending it into shape, forcing the wild creature to heal. And once you understand this internal war, once you realize calmness is a form of self-hacking, another battlefield appears on the horizon. A battlefield not built of flesh and nerves, but of perception, judgment, and the eyes of others. You have mastered the machinery beneath your skin. Now you must confront the machinery outside it. You rise out of the body's machinery and step back into the world, only to realize another law has been waiting for you all along. You are never seen as you are. You are seen as others decide you must be. Power or weakness is assigned to you in the first blink, faster than thought, older than language. A tilt of your shoulders, the weight of your breath, the steadiness of your gaze. These fragments become entire verdicts. People are walking mirrors, each one reflecting a distorted version of you. Some enlarge your flaws, some shrink your presence, some turn you into a shadow, others into a storm. You think you control how you appear, but their instincts rewrite you before your voice even leaves your mouth. And in this rewriting, you discover a social horror. Identity is negotiable, and most of the negotiation happens without your permission. Here is where the truth sharpens. Power is not democratic. It is projected. It is assumed. It is felt. Calm people seem heavier, larger, more anchored to the floor of reality. Their stillness interrupts the primitive scripts running in other minds. When someone refuses to flinch, refuses to rush, refuses to mirror panic, the brain of everyone watching jolts. Something ancient whispers, "This one does not fear us. This one stands apart." And so the unreactive person becomes a gravitational force. Eyes linger, rooms shift, conversations bend around their silence. It is not dominance through force, but through presence, a presence that stretches, darkens, reshapes the air. But this influence is not limited to judgment. Beneath the surface, something deeper begins to move. Calmness disrupts the rhythm of entire rooms. It derails tension, rearranges tempo, slows the collective heart, and in this distortion lies a paradox waiting to unfold, a truth that will unravel in the next breath. The slowest person in the room becomes the most powerful. You stand inside the chaos, watching bodies move too fast for thought. And a disturbing truth rises from beneath the noise, in moments of frenzy. The one who moves slowly becomes the one who dominates. It should not be possible. It should not make sense. And yet, when panic devours a room, your slowness becomes a kind of defiance, a quiet heresy against fear's natural gravity. While others twitch and scramble like cornered animals, you move with the measured grace of a creature that already knows how the story ends, and therefore feels no need to rush toward it. Human instinct is older than civilization, older than language, older than the masks we use to pretend we are rational. And that instinct interprets slowness as certainty, or worse, as threat. A slow gesture in a fast room feels predatory, uncanny, wrong. It whispers a message no one can articulate, but everyone feels beneath the skin. Who moves like this unless they are unbreakable? This is how slowness rewires expectation itself. It forces others to shift their rhythm, to second-guess their reactions, to recalibrate their entire presence around yours. Voices soften, gestures hesitate. Panic loses velocity. Without intending to, you become a gravitational point, an anchor in the storm. They are no longer reacting to the chaos. They are reacting to you. And that is the unsettling chain that emerges from the previous truth. Once you master your inner machinery, the outer world begins to bend. You are no longer shaped by the room. The room shapes itself around your stillness. Even the smallest gesture, a slow turn of the head, a deliberate blink, the measured placement of a hand distorts the emotional tempo of everyone watching. But remember this, if slowness feels unnatural, silence is outright dangerous. If movement can bend the rhythm of a room, then the absence of sound can break it entirely, and so the path darkens as you step into the next truth, the weapon made not of words, but of the void they leave behind. Silence arrives like a shadow with a pulse, and suddenly the room feels colder. You don't speak. You simply let the air stretch thin, tremble, and in that widening void, silence reveals itself for what it truly is, a blade forged from emptiness, sharp enough to cut without ever touching skin. It slices inward, not outward. Others feel it first. They feel the pressure to fill it, to explain themselves, to justify, to confess. Not because you demanded anything, but because the quiet demanded everything. Unreactive minds do not use silence to dominate. They use it to destabilize the script. In a world built on noise, your refusal to contribute becomes an anomaly, a threat, a mirror. And when you hold that silence, people begin to unravel. They talk too quickly, reveal too much, contradict their own confidence. The void you leave becomes a trap door beneath their feet. Here, asymmetry is born. One person rooted, steady, unmoved. The other jittering at the edges, scrambling to interpret the quiet, to fill the vacuum with meaning. They don't realize the truth. The silence isn't about them. It's about you, your refusal to react, your refusal to obey panic, your refusal to surrender the room. But with this power comes discomfort. A moral bruise begins to form beneath the surface, because silence works. It exposes, it pressures, it bends the emotional gravity of a moment. And once you witness how easily people break in the face of your quiet, you cannot pretend the technique is harmless. Silence is effective and costly. You feel the weight of it now, that unsettling sense that you are wielding something sharp, something that requires precision, restraint, responsibility. And you know you cannot hold such silence unless the storms inside you have already been tied down, tamed, negotiated with, for external quiet is impossible when your internal world is shaking. And soon, you will face the next trial, the moment when attention itself becomes the storm that tries to tear you apart. You feel the eyes return to you like a strike of light, and vulnerability opens in your chest again. Being watched has never been innocent. Eyes, when they lock onto you, stop being eyes at all. They become lanterns slicing through your skin, carving invisible wounds where your dignity leaks out. Attention falls on you like an electrical storm, tearing away pieces of who you thought you were, leaving you exposed, trembling, reduced to a body trying not to fail. To be seen is an ancient fear. Once, it meant being hunted. Today, it means being judged. And though the era has changed, the terror has not. You feel it in your stomach, in your jaw, in that small trembling you try to bury deep in your bones. Attention cuts through you, strips you bare, names you without your consent. But here the twist rises, sharp and unfamiliar. The truly powerful do not resist the gaze. They don't run from it, don't block it, don't brace against its blade. They do something infinitely stranger. They let it pass through them. They allow attention to flow across their body like wind, not like a weapon. They do not absorb the wound. They dissolve it. They do not fight the judgment. They let it die in the air. And suddenly you understand, exposure is not punishment. It is a spiritual test, a silent exam where the one who trembles breaks, and the one who remains becomes something new. The slowness you learned earlier, the silence that reshaped the room, now converge into this single truth. Your battle has always been internal, not social. The storm of eyes still rages, but something inside you aligns, as if your shadow steps back into your body and grips your ribs so it cannot flee. Yet one step remains, a ritual, a hidden anchor, the technique that allows the unreactive to stay when everything shakes. That door opens now. You learn the ritual slowly, almost by accident, as if it had been waiting beneath your skin for years. It begins with a breath, not deep, not dramatic, just intentional. A breath that reminds your body it belongs to you. Then your posture shifts, not to look strong, but to feel present. Your spine lengthens a little. Your shoulders loosen. Your weight settles evenly across the ground. And in that subtle alignment, something inside you steadies. Unreactive minds don't summon supernatural strength. They build an anchor. Breath, posture, intention, presence, for threads weaving into a single command. Stay here. Stay in your body. Stay in this moment. Stay before panic drags you toward imagined catastrophes. Grounding is the art of refusing to abandon yourself. It is, as the narrator whispers, tying your shadow to your ribs so it cannot flee. For a moment, the tone lifts. You feel the possibility of this power, not as violence, not as dominance, but as capacity. Calmness stops being a myth reserved for the chosen few. It becomes something you can construct, nurture, shape. You begin to understand that stillness is a skill, not an accident of temperament. And for the first time, the storm inside you tilts, just slightly, in your favor. But empowerment carries a darker echo. Because once you learn to anchor yourself, once you discover the quiet strength that comes from not reacting, another truth emerges, one that stings instead of soothes. Power, even quiet power, becomes dangerous in a world full of fragile minds. Your calmness, so hard-won, can feel like a threat to others. Your silence can expose their insecurities. Your steadiness can crack the illusion they depend on. This is the tragedy beneath. Mastery, your anchor, can become someone else's earthquake, and so the narrator prepares you for the next descent. The next uncomfortable truth, waiting in the shadows, the realization that most people do not shatter because you attack them, but because your calmness forces them to confront the instability they hide from themselves. That cracking begins in the next breath. You look outward again, and suddenly the world doesn't seem as solid as it once did. The people you feared, the loud ones, the confident ones, the ones who walked as if nothing could touch them, begin to look different under this new light. Their confidence flickers. Their anger trembles. Their certainty leaks at the edges. And the narrator, almost gently, reveals the dark truth you were never meant to see. Most people are far more fragile than they appear. Their confidence is borrowed, stitched together from praise they barely believed. Their anger is camouflage, a shield thrown up to hide the shaking underneath. Their authority is often an echo, not a source. You watch their faces more closely now, and what once looked like strength turns into something tragic. Porcelain masks over boiling water, smooth on the surface, cracking underneath. And here is the unsettling part. You don't even have to do anything to expose these fractures. Your calmness alone does it. Your steadiness becomes a mirror they cannot control. Your quiet presence reflects the chaos they work so hard to hide. Even your breathing, slow, grounded, deliberate, can make someone else's breath falter. You didn't mean to. You didn't ask for this effect. But power, even passive power, radiates, and with that realization comes a heaviness you can't ignore. Understanding someone's fragility does not feel victorious. It feels like guilt, like responsibility. You begin to see how easily a moment, a word, a silence could break someone who is already splintered beneath their mask. The ethical dimension emerges. What do you do with the knowledge that your stability can unmake another person? The narrator lingers here, letting the weight settle in your chest. Power is no longer a tool. It is a burden, and the question rises like a bruise. Can power ever be used without causing harm? Can calmness ever exist without consequence? There is no easy answer. Only a deepening of the shadows ahead. For now comes the darker truth. What happens when calmness stops being a refuge and begins to turn into quiet violence? Calmness begins to twist now, shifting into something heavier, sharper, almost cruel. You start to see how stillness, the very force that once protected you, can quietly cage others. You don't raise your voice. You don't threaten. You don't even move. But your unreactive presence presses against people like an invisible wall, cornering them without a single gesture. Calm turns into pressure. Stillness becomes dominance. And the horror is that you don't need to intend any of it. Power operates even in silence. People stumble over their words in front of you. They confess things they never meant to say. They shrink, recalibrate, apologize for emotions that were honest a moment ago. You watch them fold, not because you attacked them, but because your composure highlights their chaos. You become the mirror they cannot bear to face. It feels wrong, like you're holding a weapon you never asked to pick up, and yet you can't deny what's happening. This form of power erodes things. Relationships thin out, unable to survive the imbalance. Innocence dissolves, because once you see the fragility in others, you can never pretend it isn't there. Trust fractures, not from betrayal, but from the quiet realization that you influence people in ways they cannot influence you. Dominance, now, is no longer abstract. It settles on your head like a crown of thorns you choose to wear, beautiful from afar, painful up close, cutting both you and anyone who lies within reach. And with each cut comes the truth you've been avoiding. Every kind of power, even the silent kind, devours something. Sometimes it devours others. Sometimes it devours you. This is the emotional collapse the narrator has been guiding you toward the moment you realize that calmness is not pure, not innocent, not harmless. It carries consequences as sharp as any blade, and responsibilities heavier than any armor. The question that remains is not whether calmness makes you powerful, but whether you can live with the cost of that power. And so the path narrows into the final truth, the final reckoning, where calmness is stripped of its shadows and redefined for what it truly is. You feel the monologue begin to loosen, like a fist unclenching after holding its strength far too long. The world around you softens, the harsh edges blur, and the narrator, who has walked beside you through every shadowed corridor, finally lets the truth emerge with a gentler breath. Real power has never been about dominating others. It has always been about refusing to surrender yourself. Calmness, once sharpened into a weapon, reshapes itself now into something quieter, something human. Not a blade, not a crown, but a refuge, a place inside you untouched by fear's claws. A place you can retreat to without harming anyone else. And as you step into this softer truth, You feel every theme return at once. The ancient biology that wired you for panic. The gaze that rewrote you. The slowness that bent the room. The silence that carved people open. The storm of attention. The ritual of grounding. The fragility of others. The moral ache of power. All of it converges into a single realization. You were never fighting other people. You were fighting the versions of yourself the fear kept creating. The grotesque imagery fades now, replaced by something almost tender. The room breathes again. Its walls expand instead of collapsing on your ribs. The watchers dissolve into silhouettes, no longer monsters, just humans with their own trembling machinery. Your pulse, once a prisoner sprinting through your veins, slows, steadies, returns to your open hand. It belongs to you again, and with that reclaiming, you see what victory actually looks like. It is not triumph, not conquest, not dominance. It is the quiet discipline of staying inside yourself when everything tries to drag you out. It is restraint where anger wants explosion. It is presence where fear wants flight. It is self-possession, the kind that harms no one, yet loses nothing. The narrator's final whisper settles into the dimness. The greatest battles you will ever fight happen in the silence beneath your own heartbeat. And when you win them, the world does not kneel. It simply stops shaking.